Imagine this. You stop texting him. You stop calling. You stop chasing. Suddenly his entire behavior flips. Sounds crazy, right? But here's the truth. Your silence can be louder than any words you've ever spoken. Because when you stop contacting a man, one of four things will happen. And how he reacts will tell you more about him than months of conversations ever could. Now, I want you to pay attention here because this is the part most people get wrong. Some believe that if they stop reaching out, he'll just forget them. Others think silence is some manipulative trick. Neither is true. What really happens is this. Your absence creates a mirror. He is forced to confront what you mean to him, without the comfort of your constant presence. And that's when the real test begins. Have you ever stopped to think about what goes on in a man's head when you suddenly go quiet? Most women assume that if they pull back, he'll just move on. But the reality is far more complex. Silence is one of the strongest psychological triggers in relationships. It doesn't just disappear into thin air, it shifts dynamics, alters patterns, and sparks deep emotions he can't easily control. Here's why. Men are naturally built to chase, to win, and to protect what they see as valuable. When you're the one constantly calling, texting, or trying to hold the connection together, he relaxes. He knows you'll be there. But the moment you stop giving him that steady stream of attention, his brain picks up on something unusual. That sense of uncertainty, that break in rhythm, actually creates attraction. This isn't about playing tricks. It's about understanding how male psychology really works. Predictability makes people comfortable, but comfort rarely fuels passion. When you stop offering that predictable attention, his thoughts automatically begin to shift. Suddenly he's asking himself questions that never crossed his mind before. Did I mess something up? Is she pulling away? Has someone else stepped in? That spiral of questions becomes the turning point. And this is where Carl Jung's words echo so powerfully. Man cannot stand a meaningless life. When your presence becomes uncertain, he feels that void of meaning. You were once a steady source of validation and connection. Now that certainty is gone, and it leaves him unsettled. The fascinating part is this. Not every man reacts to silence in the same way. Some become anxious, others defensive, and some become hyper-focused on you in ways they never were before. It all depends on how he sees himself, how he values you, and the balance of control in the relationship. When you're always available, always checking in, always the one bridging gaps, he falls into a safe and predictable rhythm. In his mind, there's no need to work harder. But the second you stop contacting him, his brain shifts into problem-solving mode. Out of nowhere, he's hit with a question he didn't expect. Why isn't she reaching out to me anymore? This question sparks what psychologists call the uncertainty principle. People are naturally drawn to what they don't fully understand or control. For men, the drive to face challenges and solve puzzles is especially strong. When your attention disappears, it leaves an empty space that his mind can't help but fill with thoughts of you. Now here's something most people miss. At first he might look calm and comfortable, as if he doesn't care at all. But then suddenly he's watching your stories, liking your pictures, or coming up with flimsy excuses to text you. These opposite reactions come from the same root, his wiring to respond to scarcity and attention. Think about it. When something is always available, its value feels stable, almost invisible. But when that same thing becomes scarce, suddenly its value skyrockets. That's how the human mind works. Scarcity creates urgency. So let's break this down. When you stop contacting a man, the first major reaction he usually faces is confusion. Men are creatures of habit. If he's used to your steady presence, your calls, your check-ins, your affection, and suddenly it's gone, his brain struggles to adjust. At first he brushes it off. Maybe she's busy. Maybe she just needs time. Maybe she'll message me soon. That initial calm comes from ego, from the assumption that you'll always circle back. But when hours turn into days, and the silence doesn't break, that confidence starts to crack. This is when his inner storm begins. Your silence breaks his sense of control. Even if he never admitted it, he relied on the comfort of knowing you were there. He may not have thought of you constantly before, but the certainty of your presence gave him security. Now that comfort is gone, and the absence grows louder each day, here's what's really happening beneath the surface. His ego wants to appear calm, wants to believe it's no big deal. But the vulnerable side of him, the part he rarely shows, starts whispering doubts. Did I push her away? Did she stop caring? Is she with someone else? That whisper grows into a voice, and that voice becomes a storm. And this storm doesn't hit all at once. It builds gradually. The more he tries to dismiss it, the stronger it feels. Soon he's checking his phone too often, rereading old conversations, scrolling through your posts, or even noticing tiny details about you that he once overlooked. This is the psychological impact of scarcity. When something once guaranteed suddenly becomes uncertain, the mind can't help but dwell on it. For many men, this is the stage where they realize they might have taken you for granted. But remember, every man handles this stage differently. Some will reach out quickly, desperate to restore that lost security. Others will hold back, caught between pride and fear. And some will act indifferent, pretending they don't care, while secretly replaying everything in their minds. Here's the key insight. Your silence forces him to face emotions he isn't used to facing. Men are often taught to suppress vulnerability, to avoid showing doubt. But when you stop contacting him, he no longer has the comfort of avoidance. He can't escape the mirror your absence creates. And this is exactly why silence is so powerful. It's not about ignoring him to hurt him. It's about giving space for truth to surface. His reaction in this stage tells you whether he values you, fears losing you, or never truly cared in the first place. So the question becomes, how do you respond to his confusion? The answer lies in patience. Don't rush to break your silence. Don't fill the gap he now feels. Let him sit with that discomfort, because it's in that discomfort that clarity begins to grow. And this is only the beginning. Confusion is the spark. From here, things intensify. What starts as quiet doubt quickly turns into restless overthinking. And overthinking has the power to change everything. Once the confusion sets in, something deeper begins to stir. The silence that first left him puzzled now starts gnawing at his thoughts. At first, he may tell himself it's fine. You're probably busy. You'll message when you have time. But as more hours pass, then days, and still no word from you, the cracks in his confidence widen. This is where the overthinking begins. And when a man starts overthinking, the spiral can become relentless. Men aren't always skilled at confronting emotions directly. Instead of sitting with their feelings, they try to explain them away. That means instead of admitting, I miss her, or I'm worried she's pulling away, his mind runs wild with analysis. He replays your last conversation. He overanalyzes the tone of your last text. He notices tiny details, like the emojis you used or the timing of your reply. Things he never paid attention to before now feel like hidden messages. This is the danger of silence. When information disappears, the mind creates it, and usually it fills the blanks with worst-case scenarios. He might start thinking, did I say the wrong thing? Was I too cold? Did she meet someone else? Is she slipping away completely? These thoughts loop over and over until they take on a life of their own. Suddenly, a man who once looked secure is doubting himself in ways he never expected. And those doubts eat away at him quietly until he's restless. Restlessness shows up in subtle ways. He might check your profile more often. He might notice who liked your pictures, who commented on your posts, or who you've started following recently. Even the smallest changes in your online activity suddenly become massive clues in his eyes. He's searching for answers, because the silence you've created feels unbearable. And here's the paradox. The more he obsesses, the less control he feels. The more he tries to dismiss you, the more you dominate his thoughts. That loss of control is where the real power of silence lies. Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is exactly what your silence does. It drags his unconscious fears and insecurities to the surface. Fears he may not even realize he had. He begins confronting truths about himself, his pride, his attachment, his doubts that he normally keeps buried. For some men, this stage is overwhelming. They may act defensive, pretending not to care, convincing themselves they're better off without you. But even in their silence, their mind is still on you. Pride might stop them from reaching out, but the storm inside doesn't fade. Other men will give in quickly. They'll send a casual, "Hey, how have you been?" or "Haven't heard from you in a while." On the surface, it looks lighthearted, but beneath it is a craving for reassurance. It's his way of testing the waters, hoping you'll respond and give him back the comfort he's missing. And then there are men who hover in the middle. They won't reach out directly, but they'll circle your world, liking your photos, viewing your stories, dropping subtle hints. These actions aren't random. They're breadcrumbs. Silent signals that he's watching, that he wants you to notice him, without admitting it openly. But let's take a closer look at why this overthinking stage hits so hard. It's not just about missing your presence. It's about what your silence represents. When you were always available, he felt secure. Even if he wasn't giving his best, he knew you were there. But now that safety net has been removed. Suddenly, he feels vulnerable. Vulnerability can be terrifying for a man who's not used to it. And when a man feels vulnerable, he reacts in one of two ways. He either steps forward or he retreats further into pride. This tug of war between pride and vulnerability is the heart of this stage. One part of him wants to reach out, admit his feelings, and restore the connection. The other part of him fears rejection, fears looking weak, fears giving you the upper hand. And so he hesitates. This hesitation creates tension inside him. The silence is loud, his thoughts are racing, but his pride ties his hands. He may even tell himself stories to protect his ego. If she cared, she'd reach out. I'm not going to give in first. But even as he says this, his actions betray him. He's still checking, still watching, still searching for signs of you. This is where the stage of overthinking becomes powerful for you, because it forces him into reflection. He can no longer rely on your constant attention to soothe his ego. Instead, he has to ask himself real questions. Do I care enough to fight for her? Do I want to risk losing her completely? Or was I only comfortable because she was always available? Silence forces him to confront the truth he's been avoiding. And sometimes that truth surprises even him. Here's something fascinating about male psychology. Many men don't fully recognize the depth of their feelings until they're faced with the possibility of losing what they had. It's only in the absence, in the quiet, that the emotional weight comes crashing down. So what does this mean for you? It means your role is to stay steady. Don't break the silence to ease his overthinking. Don't rush in to rescue him from his doubts. Let him wrestle with them. Because the more he wrestles, the more clarity he gains. Not just about you, but about himself. Some men will emerge from this stage stronger, more honest, more determined to step forward. Others will remain stuck in pride, unable to move past their ego. Either way, his reaction reveals the truth. Remember this, overthinking is not the end. It's the middle ground. It's the bridge between his confusion and his next move. And what comes after the storm of overthinking is action. Whether it's reaching out, chasing, or pulling away, that next step will be shaped entirely by the emotions your silence has triggered. And here's where things get even more interesting. Because once the overthinking builds too high, once the restlessness becomes too strong, he reaches a breaking point. And that breaking point leads to the third reaction. Sudden, sometimes surprising, attention. After the confusion and the restless overthinking, something shifts. The silence that once made him curious, then made him doubt, finally forces him to act. He reaches the breaking point where sitting still isn't an option anymore. This is where his behavior flips. What once looked like indifference now turns into sudden bursts of attention. He might not even realize it, but the absence of your presence has lit a fire under him. At first, his attempts might be small. A simple, "Hey, how have you been?" A meme, an inside joke, a random song he knows you'd like. On the surface, it feels casual. But don't be fooled. These are not casual moves. They are emotional lifelines. They're his way of asking, "Are you still there? Do I still matter?" If you don't respond, those attempts often escalate. Suddenly he's liking your old posts, watching your stories within seconds of you posting them, or accidentally calling you. None of this is by chance. His attention is shifting back to you, because the silence has created scarcity, and scarcity makes things valuable. Think about this. When something is always available, we barely notice it. But the moment it's taken away, we begin to crave it. That's what's happening here. He's realizing that your attention, once taken for granted, is no longer guaranteed. And this shift changes everything. The man who once seemed distant, distracted, or unbothered suddenly shows signs of pursuit. He may start complimenting you again, reminding you of old memories, or making plans to meet. The energy he once withheld comes flooding back, because silence has jolted him into action. But here's the catch. Not all attention is created equal. Sometimes his sudden effort comes from genuine emotion. He realizes how much he values you and doesn't want to lose you. Other times it's his ego. He doesn't want to lose the comfort of knowing you're there. But that doesn't mean he's ready to step up fully. And this is why your response matters more than his initial effort. If you rush back the moment he throws crumbs of attention, the power shifts right back to him. But if you stay calm, measured, and in control, you'll see his true motives revealed. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." In this stage, that wisdom becomes clear. His unconscious fears of losing you are now pushing him into conscious action. But the question is, are these actions born from genuine care, or just from fear of losing control? To understand his motives, look beyond the surface. If he's sending one-line messages without depth, he's likely seeking reassurance, not connection. But if his words begin to show vulnerability, asking how you've been, checking on your life, apologizing, or wanting to meet in person, then he's moving beyond ego into something real. Here's another layer most people overlook. This stage isn't only about what he does, it's about how he feels while doing it. The silence has stripped away his certainty. That uncertainty is uncomfortable, even painful. For many men, it's the first time they've truly questioned what you mean to them, and the fear of losing you becomes the fuel that drives his behavior. Picture this. He's scrolling through your posts late at night, remembering the sound of your laugh, or replaying your last conversation in his head. He tells himself he's just checking in, but deep down, he knows he's chasing the comfort your presence once gave him. And this is where Jung's other words strike like lightning. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Your silence irritates him. It unsettles him. But in that irritation, he is forced to confront truths about himself. Why does her absence bother me so much? Why do I feel restless when she's not around? What does this say about how I truly feel? It's in this discomfort that growth begins. Some men lean into it, realizing they need to step up, to value you properly, to admit what they feel. Others fight against it, trying to mask their emotions with pride or distractions. Either way, the silence has done its job. It has forced him to reflect. Now let's look at the subtle ways men reveal themselves during this stage. The tester messages. These are short, casual pings like "hey" or "what's up?" They're not about connection. They're about seeing if you'll respond. The nostalgia plays. He brings up old memories, inside jokes, or moments that used to make you smile. This isn't random. It's his way of rebuilding closeness without admitting vulnerability outright. The attention flares. Suddenly he's complimenting you, engaging with your posts, or showing interest he hadn't shown in weeks. The subtle jealousy. He might ask who you've been with, make comments about your social media activity, or show unease if he thinks someone else has your attention. All of these are signs that your silence has disrupted his comfort zone. But here's the twist. This sudden attention is not the final reaction. It's only the build-up to something far more powerful. Because as much as he tries to mask it with casual messages or lighthearted gestures, there comes a moment when the weight of silence pushes him to face the deepest fear of all, the fear of losing you completely. And this is the stage where things truly change. His messages stop being casual. His tone shifts. His emotions break through the surface. He's no longer just chasing your attention. He's confronting the possibility of regret. That's when silence reveals its greatest power. It takes a man from habit, to doubt, to pursuit, and finally to raw vulnerability. And in that vulnerability, you'll see his truth clearer than ever before. After the confusion, the overthinking, and the sudden flares of attention, he reaches the most powerful stage of all, the emotional realization. This is the point where silence stops being a mystery or a game and becomes a mirror of loss. For the first time, he feels what life could actually be like without you. Not just missing your messages, Not just wondering why you're quiet, but truly imagining that someone else might be giving you the laughter, the affection, the intimacy that he once had. And that thought terrifies him. This is where his pride and ego no longer matter as much as his fear. Because now the silence isn't just about space. It's about absence. It's about him confronting the fact that he does not control you. He does not own your attention. And if he doesn't step up, he could lose you completely. At this stage, you'll see his behavior shift again. His messages may become longer, more emotional, sometimes even vulnerable. Instead of, "Hey, how are you?" he begins saying things like, "I miss talking to you," or "I don't like how things feel between us." Some men will go further. They'll start calling instead of texting. They'll ask to meet in person. They'll speak with urgency, because the fear of losing you is pushing them into action. But not every man responds with boldness. Some freeze. They want to reach out, but fear stops them. Fear of rejection. Fear of hearing that you've moved on. Fear of discovering the silence is permanent. So instead of chasing harder, they retreat into their own silence. And that silence speaks volumes too. Whether he steps forward or stays frozen, this stage reveals the truth of where you stand in his heart. For once, his actions are not about comfort, not about habit, not even about ego. They are about raw emotion. Carl Jung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." This is exactly what happens here. Your silence has forced him to look inward, to awaken to feelings he might have buried or ignored. For some, that awakening pushes them to change, to value you, to hold on tighter. For others, it reveals that they were never ready to give what you deserve. This is why silence is so important. It doesn't just test him, it clarifies the truth for you. His reaction in this stage gives you the answers words often can't. Now the real question becomes, how do you handle his response? This is where many women make mistakes. Let's walk through them, because avoiding these traps is just as powerful as silence itself. Mistake number 1, breaking no contact too soon. The silence works because it disrupts the pattern. But if you rush to message him after a few days of doubt, you reset everything. He no longer feels the loss. The impact disappears, and you end up back where you started, giving effort while he relaxes. Mistake number 2, using social media as a weapon. Posting cryptic quotes, over-polished selfies, or indirect messages to make him jealous might feel empowering in the moment, but it actually shows him you're still tied to his attention. Real power comes from not reacting, from showing through your energy that your life is full, meaningful, and whole with or without him. Mistake number 3, obsessively watching his moves, refreshing his stories, tracking who he follows, analyzing every like. This doesn't give you clarity. It drains your energy and ties your self-worth to his actions. Silence isn't just about not contacting him. It's about redirecting your focus back to yourself. Mistake number 4, playing games instead of being authentic. Some women try to flirt with others or fake moving on just to provoke him. While it may catch his eye briefly, it rarely builds genuine attraction. It creates drama, not depth. And if he senses the game, it risks his respect. Mistake number 5, not preparing for his return. When he finally reaches out, many women assume it means he wants to fix things. But sometimes he just wants reassurance. If you rush back, full of excitement, you risk falling into the same cycle that created the silence in the first place. You must pause, assess his motives, and respond with calm clarity. So how do you handle him when he reaches out? If his message is light or casual, don't give it too much weight. Keep your reply short, kind, but steady. Show that you're doing well, that you're not desperate for his attention. If his message is emotional or vulnerable, then you have an opening to set boundaries. This doesn't mean punishing him. It means calmly stating what you need moving forward. Something as simple as, "I appreciate you reaching out. I needed some space to think. If we're moving forward, I want better communication between us." This tells him 2 things: that you value yourself and that you won't settle for crumbs. And if he doesn't reach out at all, that is your answer too. If your absence doesn't push him to act, then he isn't willing to invest. And that clarity is a gift because it frees you to move forward with dignity. Here's the beauty of silence. No matter how he responds, you win. If he steps up, you gain clarity and stronger ground in the relationship. If he disappears, you save yourself from wasting time on someone unwilling to value you. Silence isn't about manipulation. It's about truth. It strips away the noise and forces both of you to see reality clearly. Because at the end of the day, your worth doesn't come from his attention. It comes from how you hold yourself, from how you choose patience over chasing, strength over panic, and self-respect over desperation. And that's the lesson silence teaches most of all, that you never lose by valuing yourself first. So remember this, silence is not empty. It's full of answers. Silence isn't just a tool you use in relationships. It's a teacher. By now, you've seen how powerful it can be in shifting dynamics, revealing truth, and restoring balance. But the story doesn't end there. What comes after silence is just as important as what happens during it. Because once silence has spoken, you're faced with a choice: rebuild with clarity or release with dignity. Let's go deeper into this final phase. Because this is where many people either transform their relationships or fall back into the same patterns that caused the problem in the first place. When a man finally reacts to silence, whether with confusion, overthinking, sudden attention, or emotional realization, the ball is back in your court. And this is where you need more than patience. You need wisdom. Think of silence like a reset button. It strips away the noise, the endless texts, the chasing, the energy imbalance. It resets the rhythm of the connection. But a reset only matters if you handle what comes next with strength. If you go back to the old ways, texting first, over-explaining, accepting half-effort, then nothing really changes. He falls back into comfort, and you fall back into giving. So, how do you make sure silence leads to transformation, not repetition? First, redefine your standards. Silence shows you what you are willing to accept and how it made you feel. If his reaction proves he values you, then moving forward requires new boundaries. Boundaries that protect your energy, your self-worth, and your place in the relationship. This doesn't mean building walls. It means drawing lines that say, this is how I expect to be treated, and I won't accept less. Second, look at consistency, not just intensity. During the silence, he may come back strong, calling, texting, showing attention, but intensity without consistency fades. Real change isn't in the sudden burst of messages. It's in the steady effort he shows weeks and months later. Anyone can panic and chase when they feel they're losing something, but only someone who truly values you will continue showing up long after the fear has passed. Third, ask yourself, what do I really want? Silence often reveals not just his truth, but yours. Sometimes when he comes back, you realize you don't want the connection anymore. Maybe you wanted his attention more than his presence. Maybe you realize his return doesn't erase the ways he once neglected you. Or maybe his silence, his hesitation, his pride, showed you that you were holding on to someone who wasn't truly invested. In those moments, silence frees you. It shows you that your worth doesn't depend on him, that you can stand alone without crumbling. That's when you understand one of life's deepest truths. Sometimes, losing someone is actually gaining yourself. But what if you do choose to rebuild? Then the work begins on a new foundation. You can't rebuild by slipping back into old patterns. You rebuild by communicating openly. Tell him what you need in a relationship moving forward. Show him, through your actions, that you won't tolerate being taken for granted again. Stay calm and steady, even when he tests the boundaries. Because here's the reality. Men respect what they have to work for. If you make yourself the prize, not through games, but through genuine self-worth, he will treat you differently. Now let's take this lesson beyond relationships. Silence is powerful not just in romance, but in life. It teaches discipline, patience, and clarity. When you pull back from chasing, whether it's a person, a situation, or an outcome, you give space for truth to reveal itself. You stop forcing. You start observing. Carl Jung believed deeply in the power of introspection. While we've already reflected on his wisdom, let's echo the heart of his message once more. Life isn't about chasing the external. It's about awakening within. Silence creates that awakening. It forces you, and the person you're silent with, to look inward, to confront what was ignored, to see clearly what words often hide. So what's the bigger picture here? Silence shows you who truly values you. It shows you who is willing to step forward when you no longer do the work for them. It shows you who has the courage to face their own emotions and who hides behind pride. But most importantly, silence shows you something even greater. It shows you that your value isn't tied to constant giving, that you don't have to chase to be chosen, that sometimes the strongest move you can make is no move at all. Let's imagine two possible outcomes at the end of your silence. Outcome 1. He steps up. He admits he missed you. He shows effort. He rebuilds trust with consistency. Here, silence has given you the clarity and the leverage to move forward with balance. You're no longer the only one giving. He understands your value in a way he didn't before. Outcome 2. He fades away. He doesn't reach out. Or maybe he does, but with half-hearted effort. He lets the silence grow, even when it hurts. This may sting at first, but in reality it's a gift, because it reveals that he wasn't willing to fight for you. And now you know, without a doubt, that letting go is the only path to peace. Either way, silence wins, because silence is clarity, and clarity is freedom. Now let's talk about you, because this isn't just about him. The deeper lesson here is about your self-respect. When you practice silence, you're not punishing someone. You're proving to yourself that you don't need to beg for attention, prove your worth, or exhaust yourself trying to be chosen. You're reminding yourself that your value is not negotiable. And here's the irony. When you embrace that truth, you often become more attractive than ever before. Because confidence, self-respect, and patience are magnetic. They draw people in, not through force but through presence. Think about the strongest people you've ever met. They don't chase. They don't explain themselves endlessly. They don't scramble to prove their worth. They stand calmly in their truth, and the world adjusts to them. That's the power you hold when you master silence. So let me leave you with this. Silence is not about manipulation. It's about revelation. It reveals his heart. It reveals your strength. And it reveals the truth of whether a connection is meant to grow or to end. Never fear silence. Use it. Respect it. And remember this, when someone truly values you, silence won't push them away. It will pull them closer. Because in the end, silence doesn't weaken bonds. It exposes them. It shows which ones are strong enough to withstand the storm, and which ones were fragile all along. And that is your final gift. The freedom to choose with eyes wide open, and the strength to never settle for less than you deserve.